Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. This all happened recently, and even though I'm back in my apartment now and technically done with the situation, I can't stop replaying it in my head. I honestly don't know whether I overreacted, underreacted, or just reached a breaking point in a long history of silent tension. Either way, it's left a mark, and I can't look at my mother or stepfather the same way anymore. I'm 30 years old. I live on my own. I pay my rent. I have a stable career, my own social life, and for the most part, I stay out of family drama. But last weekend, I went back to visit my mom and stepdad for a long weekend, something I usually do maybe once or twice a year. We're not particularly close. My mom and I have always had a somewhat tense but civil relationship, and my stepfather, well, that's a complicated story. He married my mom when I was around 15, a couple of years after my dad passed away. I wasn't a rebellious teenager, but I was grieving, adjusting, and pretty emotionally shut down. My mom met Daryl through work, and it was a whirlwind. One day, she was telling me about this new guy she was seeing, and the next, he was moving in with us. From the beginning, he was strict, not outright abusive, but controlling in a way that was wrapped up in passive aggression and fake morality. He liked to talk about respecting the head of the household and keeping order, and how structure is love. To him, structure meant curfews, chores, rules about clothes, rules about language, even rules about what books were appropriate. It was like living in some suburban dictatorship. My mom went along with it. I think she wanted peace and a man who took control of things, especially after being a single mother for a while. So I stayed quiet. I finished school, left for college, and never really looked back. I've been on my own ever since. Daryl and I have always been cordial when I visit. He's the kind of guy who still calls me young lady, in a tone that feels more like a warning than a nickname. I always just smiled, helped clean up after dinner, nodded during his lectures about taxes or the value of hard work, and got through the visit. But something about this past weekend snapped something in me. I was visiting for a long weekend, just Friday through Monday morning. My mom had asked if I could come home for a bit since we hadn't seen each other in a while, and she had recently had minor surgery and was still recovering. Nothing too serious. Outpatient procedure, but she said she missed me and just wanted to see me. So I booked the flight, took a couple of days off work, and came home. Friday was uneventful. We had dinner, caught up, and I helped around the house a little. Saturday, I made plans to go out with some friends from high school who still live in the area. These are women I've known for years. We're all in our late 20s to early 30s. We had a couple drinks, got some food, and just stayed out talking and catching up. It wasn't wild or irresponsible. No clubs, no getting wasted, just laughter and stories that spilled into the late hours. I got home a little after midnight. When I walked through the door, I was surprised to see the living room lights still on. Daryl was sitting in his recliner, arms crossed, with that dad disappointment look on his face. He said flatly, "Where have you been?" I blinked. I thought he was joking. "I was out with some friends." "Why are you awake?" He stood up, not aggressively, just stiffly, and said, "You're grounded." I laughed, like full-on laughed. I thought he was being ironic. I said, "What?" and started to walk toward the stairs, assuming this was just one of his weird jokes. But he wasn't smiling. "I'm serious," he said. "You've been disrespectful in this house." Out past midnight, no message, coming and going as you please. That doesn't fly here. As long as you're under my roof, you follow my rules. At first, I was stunned. Then I felt this wave of heat spread through my chest. Not fear, not even anger at that point, but a deep disbelieving resentment. I turned around slowly and said, "Daryl, I'm 30 years old. I don't live here. I'm visiting for a weekend. I don't need a curfew." He stepped closer. "I don't care how old you are. You're a guest in this house, and you will respect the rules I've set. You want to stay here? You keep a respectful tone, and you're in by 10. That's how it works here." That's when I snapped. Are you serious right now? I said, my voice shaking. I live on my own. I pay my own rent, my own bills. I work 50 hours a week. I came here to help take care of your wife, my mother, after surgery. And now you're standing here trying to ground me like I'm 17? He crossed his arms. Watch your attitude. I could barely contain myself. My attitude? No, Daryl. I'm done watching my attitude. I've been polite to you for 15 years. I've walked on eggshells every time I come here. I've listened to you talk down to me, patronize me, and act like I owe you something just for being allowed to sleep under this roof for 3 nights. He looked stunned. Not because he was hurt, but because I had the audacity to talk back. He said, "You keep pushing. I'll tell you to leave." And I said, "Maybe I should leave." That's when my mom came in, bleary-eyed from upstairs, asking what was going on. We both started talking over each other. She raised her hands and told us to stop. Then she turned to me and said the words that hurt the most. "Please, just keep the peace. Don't provoke him. You know how he is." I stared at her. "Don't provoke him?" I repeated. "He tried to ground me, Mom. Like I'm a child." For staying out a little past midnight, she sighed. "He's just old-fashioned." "He didn't mean it like that. Can you just not escalate things?" "I don't want this weekend to turn into a fight. Please apologize to him." So I just went upstairs, packed my bag, and left. I booked a hotel nearby and flew home early the next morning. Since then, I've received a few texts from my mom. Nothing from Daryl. My mom said she was disappointed that I blew things out of proportion, and that he didn't mean it seriously, and he was just trying to protect the household. She told me I should apologize for disrespecting his position, and that I'm not welcomed until I do. I haven't responded yet, because deep down, I think I'm still reeling from the fact that after 15 years of trying to make this blended family work, of being quiet, polite, non-confrontational, I'm still being treated like a teenager who needs to be put in her place under the roof of a man who, frankly, has never treated me like a daughter, only an obligation. I don't know if I should have just swallowed my pride and said, "Sure, Daryl," and kept the peace. I don't know if leaving was too much, but I do know that I don't want to go back. Not like that. Not when a visit home makes me feel like I'm 15 again, and one wrong move away from being told to go to my room. So, Reddit. Am I the asshole for refusing to be grounded at 30, standing up to my stepdad, and leaving early when my mom begged me to keep the peace? This story made my blood boil. OP is absolutely not the a-hole. OP is a fully grown adult visiting her childhood home, not a teenager breaking curfew. The fact that OP's stepdad thought it was appropriate, at 30 years old, to ground OP for coming home at midnight tells me everything I need to know about how little he respects her independence. And what's even more disappointing is OP's mom's response. Don't provoke him. That's not keeping the peace. That's enabling his need for control. OP didn't blow up. OP calmly set a boundary that was long overdue. OP was treated like a child because, in his mind, she still is. And OP's mom's refusal to defend OP makes it even clearer that the dysfunction isn't new. It's just finally boiling over. And now let's hear community's opinion. What really gets me is how your mom defaulted to your behavior being the problem. It's so common in these types of family dynamics. The keep the peace crowd always expects the reasonable person to bend, while the one who creates the tension faces no consequences. You came home to visit, help out, show support after surgery, and instead of being treated like an honored guest or, at the very least, a respectful adult, you were treated like a misbehaving teenager for stepping in the door at midnight. That isn't old-fashioned. That's condescending and controlling. You handled it with way more grace than most people would. You didn't storm out. You packed your things, removed yourself from the situation, and protected your own peace. That's not immaturity. That's emotional intelligence. Your stepfather clearly never stopped seeing you as a disruption to his house. Not a daughter, not an equal adult, just someone who needed to be managed. You were 15 when he married your mom, which means you were never really given a chance to be a partner in the family. You were someone he could police, and now that you're an adult, that control dynamic doesn't work anymore. What he tried to do wasn't about rules. It was about dominance, about reminding you that no matter how old you get, in his eyes, he still holds the power. The fact that your mom's response was to protect his ego instead of your dignity is heartbreaking, but not surprising. Some people would rather sacrifice a real connection than confront the person making the house uncomfortable. You didn't disrespect his position. You challenged a fantasy he built around it. You're not just not the a-hole. You're the one person in that house actually living in reality. What your stepdad did wasn't just tone-deaf, it was dehumanizing. He tried to reduce you to an obedient child for simply existing as an adult woman who stayed out late with friends. There's no rule that justifies that kind of power play. And your mom, I feel for her, but she's made her choice, and that choice was to prioritize his comfort over your respect. The saddest part of this whole thing is that you clearly weren't expecting a warm embrace. You just wanted a peaceful visit, maybe some emotional support. Instead, you were treated like an intruder in your own family. If anything, you should be proud of how calmly and clearly you walked away. Because that house might be his roof, but it's no longer your home, and you don't need to apologize for knowing your worth. Let me start off by saying that I'm a 15-year-old male. I have a 20-year-old sister that recently got pregnant. The way the custody works is that I stay at my dad's place Monday to Friday afternoon and go to my mom's on Friday afternoon to Monday morning. This weekend I went to my mom's house and then I went into my room and found most of my things thrown carelessly and saw my bed replaced with a crib. I asked my mom why, and she told me that it is for my sister's baby and that I can use the guest room. I asked what about my things thrown carelessly. Mom told me she bought it. She can do what she wants with it. This upset me, and I packed my things that were laying on the floor into a suitcase that I bought that stayed at my mom's house. I called my dad to pick me up. He did, and I left. When I reached my house, Mom called me and asked where I went. I told her I'm at my dad's house and that I will be permanently staying there until I get my room back. Mom yelled at me for making her more child support. My mom gave my half-sister my phone number. She blew up my phone and demanded I come back so I can babysit her child. I laughed and told her to duck off and blocked her. Am I the a-hole? I found out my room was being replaced with a nursery, so I decided to permanently stay at my dad's and refused to come back until I get my room back. My mom is mad at me because she will have to pay more child support, and my sister is mad at me because she can't have me as a free babysitter so she can get drunk and party. Not the a-hole. Why can't the baby go in the guest room? Also, not your baby, and you are a teen, so you have other obligations. So unless your sister is paying you to babysit, or just expecting you to help out once in a while, which does not seem like the case, she wants a built-in free babysitter so the baby doesn't interrupt her life. Not your problem. Also, not your divorce or custody agreement between your parents, so also not your problem. If none of these people are considering you, and you are old enough to decide where you want to live in the eyes of the court, do what's best for you, and let the adults deal with the decisions they have made and the consequences of them. You are not the a-hole, and truly none of this is your problem in terms of lack of babysitting and change in child support. Not the a-hole at all. Your space was disrespected. Yes, you are only there 2 days out of the week, but it is still your space. And your sister shouldn't become a mother if she plans on going back to her old partying ways after the baby is born. She needs to step up and adult now. I would ask your dad to talk to a lawyer about changing the custody agreement to where it's only day visits. Not the a-hole. Like, not even a little bit the a-hole. Was it the most mature thing to do to disappear without notice? Maybe not. But as your mother threw your things onto the floor, dismissed your complaints with a, "I own the place, so screw you," and both were in the mindset that you'd play babysitter for your sister's poor choices in life. I don't really give a duck about maturity in this case. Also, point of fact for you, you are not responsible for your mother's issues surrounding child support. You are entitled to support from both parents, and if your mother struggles a smidge more because of this, then so be it. I can't stand the man my mom married. He is loud, obnoxious, thinks he's the funniest guy in the room, and the list goes on. Unfortunately, my mom is over the moon about him and always takes his side. My wife and I are in a financial bind and had to move in with them temporarily along with our son, so we were all stuck celebrating Christmas together. My main gift to my wife was makeup, as that is her passion and main hobby. My mom's husband was aware of this because he burst into our room last night as I was wrapping it, so he knew what paper I used and the size, shape. We were going to do Christmas gifts a bit later to give my mom some time alone in the morning, as she was not happy about this forced togetherness on Christmas. Anyway, my mom was opening her gifts, and my wife and I were hanging back. My wife's gifts were under the tree, though. Suddenly, I saw her husband reach for the box I had wrapped and handed it to my mom. I was about to say something, but I kind of froze, hoping it was a mistake. My mom opened it, stared at him for a minute, and then slid it across the room. He burst out laughing and said that wasn't actually for her, but he just wanted to see how she would react to being given makeup as a gift. My mom laughed it off, but I was fuming. I felt like he ruined my wife's gift because it was now open, and my wife was awkwardly wondering if it was for her. They also implied it was a bad gift. I ended up cussing him out. He tried to tell me I was overreacting, and the joke was on my mom and not me. I decided I will not be attending Christmas and we will stay in our room. I did, however, go down to say hi to everyone, and when they asked why I wasn't staying, I was honest. I told them about his a-hole prank and how he disrespected our property. They all looked at us like we were crazy and/or laughed. My mom came up a minute ago and said I was so dramatic and embarrassing. Not the a-hole. I hope you're able to leave ASAP. This sounds like a lousy dynamic for all involved. That was incredibly rude of your stepfather, and everyone who is laughing it off is failing to imagine how upsetting that would be if it were them and their gifts. Not the a-hole. How dare he be so selfish and ignorant? The gift was for your wife, and if he wanted to play the "what would you do if" game, he should have brought a makeup gift himself. The fact that it was unwrapped by your mom as well is just worse because it was for your wife. Your mom should take more consideration, but to be honest, I think maybe she called you embarrassing because she's embarrassed for her husband's actions and needs someone to blame so she doesn't feel that way. Not the a-hole. He's acting like a child, and mom is co-signing his BS. If they don't want people knowing what an immature person he is, then perhaps he should knock that BS off. To be clear, I do not think my wife is stupid and would never call her that. But what she said was pretty dumb, and I get my mom is protective of me, and it pissed her off. So my mom stopped by a little while ago for a quick visit, as we never get to see each other on holidays. We had already done gifts as a family when she got there, so I was catching up with my mom, and my kids were playing with their new toys. My wife decided to do some social media snooping and was on my boss's wife's page. When she saw the pics conveniently in front of the tree with the gifts open, she got jealous. Envy is something she really struggles with, and my mom knows this. My wife complained it wasn't fair, made a joke she would have married him instead if he wasn't such an a-hole, and finally whined that she didn't get a little blue box, Tiffany's, though she does much more work than her as we don't have a nanny. I got annoyed and snapped at her that I couldn't afford that. She replied that we work at the same company. My mom and I both looked at her, and then my mom got mad and said, "Are you stupid? Do you know what a boss is?" Now, I agree it was a stupid comment, and my wife was in the wrong. But I feel as her husband, I have to stand up for her, and it is important to set a precedent about how she treats my wife, as this is not the first time she was rude. I told my mom our visit was over and she had to go. She called me wussy-whipped and said I wasted her time and she shouldn't have bothered coming. Now my family is mad at me and saying my mom was only sticking up for me. You're the a-hole. I would have said exactly what your mom said in that situation. And given the amount of entitled whining your wife was doing, that was a pretty appropriate comment for the moment. I think telling her to leave was making a big deal out of it. Also, your wife sounds like an exhausting person. I hope she works on her unrealistic expectations and jealousy. You're the a-hole. Normally I would be all for spouses having each other's backs, but in this case, it was your wife who was putting a knife in yours in front of your mother. If your wife wants to set herself against you in a way that blatantly shows she is disloyal, shallow, gold-digging, and unappreciative of you, and frankly, genuinely stupidly greedy in her thinking, I can hardly blame your mother for what she said. She was actually restrained considering what she has to work with. Edited to add. I'd also like to point out that asking, "Are you stupid?" is not the same as saying, "You are stupid." The context of the question was the wife trying to assert that as her husband and his boss work at the same company, they should be able to afford the same things. It's a stupid thing to say on its face, and the question, while not polite, was to get her to think about the ridiculous nature of the assertion she was making, not just an insult out of nowhere. You're the a-hole. Are you stupid? Your wife basically admitted she's a gold digger and said that she would have rather married your boss, if only he wasn't such a jerk. and instead of being angry at her, you kick out your mother for defending you. Your wife needs help for her insane jealousy, and frankly, I don't know why you put up with her. If my partner decided to start jealous BS drama on Christmas over how my boss bought his wife better gifts than what I got her, I'd be pissed. And this whole they work at the same company BS is downright idiotic. I'd have a few choice words if my partner acted and said the things yours did. I want to know if I'm in the wrong. When my 24 female, husband, 30 male, and I bought our home, at the time, his brother, 26 male, was living with him. I didn't want to displace him since it was my decision to purchase the home, and I told him he could move in with us. Everything's been good. We have 3 bedrooms on the main level, 1 for our bedroom, 1 for our computer, office, game room. I work from home, so I need that, and brother's room. Now that I am pregnant, I want his brother to move to the room in the basement. It's twice the size of his room. We even offered to floor and carpet it, and paint the walls his choosing. He doesn't want to move to the basement because his cats will feel uncomfortable. His ducking cats. I'm starting a family, and I need my office, and his room was what I had in mind to convert into a nursery. I told him he's going to hear screaming and crying all the time. He doesn't care, and now he wants to paint the bedroom. To mark it? I don't know. On top of that, my husband is siding with him, saying he just feels comfortable upstairs. We will change the office into the nursery and bring the computers into the bedroom. I'm on the verge of throwing them both out of my house. I'm so frustrated. Shouldn't it be my feelings first? Would I feel comfortable with my baby? Edit. Brother pays a small portion of rent towards us, but I don't think he will move out because we let him foster kittens in the basement, and he doesn't pay for any utilities, gas, etc. Just a couple hundred for rent that he forgets most months anyways. We don't care. We let him stay with us because we care for him. Brother does not have a disability. He is perfectly capable, just a bit socially awkward. Don't want to move the office to the basement because in the future I will have to watch my child on the main level where its room and everything else will be at my disposal while potentially working from home. Husband talked to brother over the summer before we even started trying, and he said he would move to the basement. Not the a-hole. You've got to be kidding me. The adult brother and his cats need to move to the basement. There's no discussion or compromise that is needed. He can move to the basement or he can move out. I have no idea why your husband would agree to everyone accommodating the adult brother over the comfort of everyone else in the home. And if the brother really thinks it would be better to be upstairs with an infant, I don't think he understands what that entails. I'm very confused on why a lot of people want the pregnant woman, mother of an infant, to walk up and down stairs instead of telling a grown man to move to the basement. The assumption is that the basement is underground with a dirt floor or something, when we don't know that is the case. Also, are we talking about a baby? What adult is going to want to live and sleep next to a baby who is going to spend most of the first months crying? Let the man stay there, cause them cats gonna run to the basement without him the first night that child screams. Not the a-hole. Your house. You work from home. You need your office. You were nice enough to let him live with you. That doesn't mean he gets to make actual decisions there. Your husband is a jerk. The choice here should be either move to the basement or find a new place to live. It's not that it should be your feelings first. It's the fact that it's your house. I, 27 female, have a friend called Beth. Beth has a boyfriend, Michael, and they've been together about 9 months. I now live abroad, but I was spending December in my home city to see friends, family. Since Beth got together with Michael, Michael has become quite a good friend to me also. When I visited them at the beginning of December, Michael was talking about the company he'd recently joined and how it was kind of an old boys club type place. Family money, nepotism baby, work hard, play harder, city types. And he was having quite a hard time bonding with his team, especially his boss. He talked about the upcoming Christmas party and then said his team tended to tease him about not understanding their conversations. He mentioned a popular holiday destination a lot of the team had been to over the summer, where I have holidayed before, and I was explaining some things he said had come up in the conversation. He suddenly suggested that I come to his Christmas party with him and help him bridge the gap with his colleagues. Beth immediately agreed. Here's the thing. I asked Beth 4 times during that dinner if she was okay with this, and she said yes. I asked her 3 times over the phone the day after when she was alone, and she said she was fine with it, and that I was saving her from a stressful evening and doing something nice for Michael. I went to the party, and actually it was a nice evening. Michael and I were not physical at all, obviously, but we are friends, so it was fun to hang out. And his team are exactly what you'd expect. A little out of touch with immature but good fun for an evening. Michael thanked me profusely, even sent me flowers saying how much he appreciated it. I really thought I'd done a good thing. Ever since, Beth has been ghosting me. I sent her several texts to meet up while I was in town, and she ignored my calls and messages. I figured I'd speak to her about it in the new year, but yesterday when I sent her a Merry Christmas text, she replied with a wall of text saying I had a nerve to try to be her friend after I completely destroyed her self-esteem, and how she can't believe I actually went to the party. I pointed out that I had asked her multiple times if it was okay, and she said yes. But her point is, I should have just known that it would make her feel bad that Michael wanted to use me to impress people. I'll admit I suspected it did make her feel bad, but when she was pushing me to do it anyway, I presumed she'd put her own feelings aside. My fiancé says it's not my fault, and that Beth should have been honest instead of expecting me to read her mind. But a couple of my friends say I should probably just have said no in solidarity. Am I the a-hole? You asked multiple times. She had plenty of time to say she was uncomfortable, and this made her feel self-conscious. Her boyfriend is the a-hole for putting his career advancement, because at the end of the day, that was what this was really about, not bonding, before his partner. Your friend is the a-hole for not expressing her feelings like an adult. At worst, you are naive, bordering on ignorant, for believing your friend was actually okay with it. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She literally lied to you 7 times, and then had the audacity to expect you to read her mind. If she really didn't want you to go, she should have been upfront in the beginning. Everyone sucks here. She should have been honest about her feelings, but he never should have suggested it, and you shouldn't have accepted if you really did think it might hurt her feelings. You're not Cyrano, and him not knowing about a holiday spot wasn't going to kill his career. What happens when the next thing they know about that he doesn't? Will you keep playing fake girlfriend at the expense of his real one for the rest of his time there? And the flowers were insane.